Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the MCM game stage. It's kind of there. It's kind of there. Should be a bigger one, though. We've got a very special guest here with us. So once more. It's better. It's better. Right, so we've got a great session now. We've got Mr. Brian Fargo, who's going to show off Wasteland 2. Round of applause. Oh, it's all yours, Brian.
How about this? Oh, there we go. So this is my first Comic Con, and I feel wildly inappropriately dressed. It's fantastic walking around. So are there any my Kickstarter backers here today? Oh, thank you. I would not be up on this stage if it wasn't for these people here that helped support the vision for me wanting to bring back sort of a classic style role-playing game. And it's been quite a journey getting here and getting back up to this, to doing what I'm doing. So if you're not familiar with my background, I founded a company a long, long time ago when I was a teenager called Interplay Productions. And you might remember some of the games. Our first big hit was The Bard's Tale in 1985, and that really put us on the map. And we followed up with Wasteland shortly after that. We did games like Battle Chess, Descent, Baldur's Gate, Fallout, Torment, Giants, Kingpin, Sacrifice, Icewind Dale. We did a tremendous amount of games during our time. And so I've been at this for a good 30 years. And I was happy to read recently that Alfred Hitchcock had his biggest film when he was 60. So I figure I can keep doing this for a while. And I was very much known, or I should say the company was most known for its role-playing games. And it was, I grew up playing these as a kid, and Dungeons & Dragons primarily. It was a big part of my early years. And, you know, the thing about this particular product was that, so we did Wasteland in '88, and I've always been a big fan of the post-apocalyptic genre. I read comic books like Commandy, The Last Boy on Earth, The Omega Man, and The Road Warrior was my favorite film for probably close to a decade. There was something about the subject matter that I absolutely loved. And a book called Swan Song, which was another great post-apocalyptic novel. And so we did Wasteland, and it was a solid success, and people really liked it. And I wanted to do a sequel, but at the time we were sort of a mid-sized company. And we were doing work for Electronic Arts at the time, and we had a couple of hits, and we just weren't making much money. So I had this wild concept that, well, you know, if we make good games, we'd like to make a profit too. And so we switched our model and became a publisher. So basically, we were effectively competing with Electronic Arts at that time, though much smaller. And so anyway, I went back to them. I said, hey, can I get the rights to Wasteland? They said, absolutely not. You're a competitor. You can do it as a developer if you'd like, but we're not going to license it to you to do, which I understand. So I tried, I cajoled, I begged for many years, and they just wanted no part of it. And so that's why we launched the Fallout series at Interplay. We took a look at Wasteland, and we looked at the sensibilities and what made it work. And there's a lot of similarities with the two, from you know, specific things to the proton axe or power armor. Into a number of different sort of, I guess, sensibilities is the best way to describe it. So Fallout, of course, became a wild success, and I still stayed at Interplay for many years, but finally it had become very large, and we had, I didn't get to spend much time doing games anymore. We had Universal as an ownership, we had a French company, we were a public company. All I was doing was banks, and it was kind of a nightmare. And so I finally resigned from the company in 2002, and I was a man without a post-apocalyptic license. So I managed to get the rights to Wasteland back right around that time from Electronic Arts. I'll make sure this doesn't go off. And I thought, okay, great, I'm going to go out and I'm going to pitch this to some publishers. This is going to be an easy sell. I worked on Fallout and Wasteland. I got some of the creative team from both, and I thought for sure it would be like just the easiest pitch in the world. and I got absolutely nowhere putting it out there. And so I tried for another decade. So literally for 20 years, I've been trying to get this game put together. In fact, shortly before the Kickstarter that I did a keynote in Shanghai that was basically about the death of the single-player narrative role-playing game. And then it was 3 months later that Kickstarter came along. Tim Schafer launched a very successful one with Broken Age. And I saw that and I thought, this is kind of our last shot. And so we scrambled together. We put a campaign. We launched about 30 days after first seeing his. And we went out there, and I was absolutely nervous as hell because I knew that if this didn't fund, there was no way anybody was going to support this dream ever again. And so we went out the first day, and we did about $400,000 of donations came in to help make the game. Of course, I was very cynical the next day. I thought for sure it was going to drop off, and there was no way it was going to continue on. And then actually had a guy call me out of the blue and say, hey, Brian, if you don't make it, I'll give you the rest of the money. I thought, oh my God, this is really going to happen. But 43 hours in, and we had asked for $900,000, which was the highest ask for anything on Kickstarter before, which was pretty nerve-wracking because everyone kept saying we're asking for too much, but there was no way I could make a reasonable role-playing game for anything less. So at the end of the day, we had 60,000 people come through, and we raised just under $3 million to finally bring Wasteland back to life. And so it was really just probably it was a high water mark moment for me in my career of doing this, being proud of accomplishing it and having the support from the people who've been playing my games over the years who stepped up and believed in us. And it's such a different concept to the traditional developer-publisher relationship because when you do development work, there's typically sort of a 50-page contract that has all sorts of sort of onerous language that if you screw up, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Whereas this is on the complete opposite, where people give you the money up front and they say, you know what, we trust you, go for it. And so I'm happy that we're finally in the home stretch and delivering against that trust. So I want to show you one brief little video here that's sort of a snippet from the Kickstarter video that helping help channel some of my frustration with a bit of comedy on getting it launched. So hold on. Thanks for meeting with me today.
So you want us to pay for a Wasteland sequel?
Yes.
How old is that game?
It came out in 1988.
I'm pretty sure my mom graduated high school that year.
Fascinating.
Have you been involved with any games I might have heard of?
Have you heard of Bard's Tale?
No.
Fallout?
Can't say I have.
Stonekeep?
Doesn't ring a bell.
How about Dragon Wars?
I got nothing.
Castles?
I like TV show.
Star Trek 25th Anniversary?
With Picard?
No, Kirk.
Then no.
Baldur's Gate?
Who Gate?
You had to have heard of Battle Chess.
Is it launched yet?
Icewind Dale? Neuromancer? Free Space? Kingpin?
Did you do Angry Birds?
Would I f***ing be here if I did Angry Birds?
Will this be like it?
No, it's a completely different genre. It's a role-playing game.
Is it a billion-dollar franchise?
Probably not.
Then I can't help you.
So you're turning down a game that the fans want.
Hey, I'm a publisher.
So, sadly, that conversation was far too close to many of the ones that I had. I would go into these meetings and they would have no sense of the heritage or history of what we've done. So, and I would go on press tours and I would travel around the world and people would always ask about Wasteland and a couple of the other games. And it was always, there was people that wanted to play it. There was a guy like me that wanted to make them, but there were people in between. It was either retailers that didn't want to stock it, or it was publishers or financing that didn't want to help us get there. And so now digital distribution made that go away, and crowdfunding made the other pillar go away, which has allowed this to happen. So with that, one of the things I'm showing here for the first time is the opening movie to set up the sort of the history and story as we go into Wasteland 2. One of the things about when you do crowdfunding is you develop a relationship with the people who financed you. I compare it to running for political office and having more like constituents at that point, because they put their money in and they want to have a voice on what goes on. And so during the campaign, we talked about, where do you think the best use of money is being spent? More music, yes. Greater scope of world, yes. Greater reactivity, yes, more of that. Special effects, cinematics, no. You know, that's not where they wanted to see their money spent. So, but with that said, I wanted to have some kind of sequence that set it up. Now, if you look at something like the Blizzard cinematics, which are absolutely fantastic, they spent about $1.5 million per minute making those things. So basically, 2 minutes of their opening movie was greater than the budget we raised from Kickstarter. And even when you see some of the stuff that comes out of Eastern Europe, like Witcher, for example, which looks beautiful and fantastic, even that can run you a couple $100,000 a minute, and that wasn't where my fans wanted to see us spend money. So I reached out and I found some talent. There was a girl from Australia. She did a very quirky movie called Wasteland Panda, and it's super odd, but it has a lot of character to it. And I brought her aboard, and we put together something very effective, very sort of efficiently. And one of the ways we cheated to get as much as we did on screen for a very tight budget was that there's also an event in the California desert each year called Wasteland Weekend. And it's sort of a Burning Man for people who love post-apocalyptic stuff. It's almost like a cosplay version of Mad Max, and it's completely fantastic. And I sent film crews out both years to get just this great footage that if I had to recreate all the sets and costumes, everything else, would have cost a bloody fortune. So with that said, let me debut the opening movie.
What comes after the end? I don't know. Neither did they. They were just an Army engineer battalion, constructing roads and bridges deep in the middle of the Arizona nowhere. They didn't know why Armageddon had come. They'd heard radio chatter about an attack on some space-based missile platform. But who had attacked it, or why? No one knew. What they did know is that the politicians and the generals had finally ended the world. Now, everything was gone. They took over a federal prison for a fort, kicked out the convicts, got busy starting from scratch. Maybe it was an act of mercy. Maybe they figured that the prisoners would die out in the harsh new world. Whichever, it came back to bite the engineers in the ass. Cultists, criminals, cannibals. They've been living with the fallout ever since. Good people had survived too, called for help in the night. And those engineers, those common soldiers, could not stand by and see them die. So they came out of their fort, and they helped the survivors defend their homes. And for that, they earned a new name, a proud name, the Desert Rangers. Now, Rangers, I know it seems at times our cause is hopeless, and I know it's hard to say goodbye to a brother in arms. But I want you to know something else. That no Ranger who dies in the line of duty will ever be forgotten. Nor will he ever have died in vain, or unavenged. Thank you, recruits.
There we go. It was a lot of fun putting that together, and we were always worried about the results. Mark Morgan was the original composer for Fallout 1 and 2 and Planescape Torment, and he's been working with us to do all the music for the game, and he helped score the movie. So I don't know about many of you, but if you grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons, I suspect, looking at the crowd, that some of you have, and played or any other kind of pen and paper game. And the thing about those games and why they were so great was the thing about role-playing games in general, good ones, is they're really about free will and your ability to do what you want. Now, there are rules for how combat works and weapons and how spells and the magic system, but basically, you know, my great experiences were when you would improvise with your dungeon master to do things that weren't necessarily strictly what he had in mind. So whether you wanted to try climb a wall or cast a silence spell or try something off the beaten path, that he would accommodate for that, roll the dice and let you know how successful you were, and sort of play that out. It was kind of the great improv theater. And I'm reading this. There's a great book out now called Of Dice and Men, and it's about the impact of Dungeons and Dragons and what it means. And it's a very, very funny written book. And he gives a great example of the game Clue, which we all know the rules for Clue, which is you try to find Professor Plum did it in the library with a wrench or something, right? And we sort of solve the murder. If that was a role-playing game, we would find the lead pipe, which would do damage of 4 to 6. We'd see if it had any armor-piercing bonus. We would beat Colonel Mustard over the head with it and get a confession, and then we would try to use persuasiveness on Miss Scarlet to seduce her in the library. That's a D&D game. And so knowing that our roots are that free will, we need to give players a tremendous amount of options within the world for what they want to do. Otherwise, it starts to break apart as an immersive experience. So when you jump in and you try some little thing that isn't sort of obvious and it works, we get you a little deeper into it. And it works a second time and it works a third time. And if we do enough of that stuff, I think that's where you get totally into the game. And consequently, on the opposite side, if you start trying these things and they don't work, you start to lose the immersion and it doesn't feel real. So for the demo I'm going to show today, you'll see my focus is very much on the small details, because for me, that's what matters for these types of things. They're sort of the antithesis, opposite of the big budget sort of Call of Duty type things with your sort of visual masterpieces, or the big, Michael Bay summer release tentpole film. These are about the devil being in the details. So that's why when I demo this, you're going to see why the focus is on that. So we're going to start. The game rolls right into the funeral scene right after the opening movie.
I appreciate you coming to Captain Ace's retirement party when you hardly knew the man. Appropriate, too, seeing as how investigating his death will be your first duty as a desert ranger. Yeah, I know, you've hardly found your feet with us. Here I am sending you on a mission that already got one ranger killed. Well, I wish I had another option, but the desert rangers are spread a little thin right now. No more experienced hands to spare. The next generation is going to have to lead the charge.
So you'll notice that we're choosing
the mission
keywords
is this.
Down below.
Search the area where Ace's body was found and do your best to recover his logbook and the repeater units. Then call in your report. If you can find the repeaters, I may send you on to finish his mission. Now, I know you're going to be tempted to hunt for Ace's murderers along the way, and if you find them, good. But your priority, however, is finding that signal. Vengeance for Ace's death is not as important as assessing this threat to our security. It's about a day's walk east from here. I'll mark it on your map.
So everything gets unlocked via the conversation system for keywords, which you click on the main subject matters. But you can also type words in that are not listed.
Good luck out there, recruits.
In fact, you can type in clues from the first game that people will know about the lore, depending on how deep you want to dive. So this particular one here, you can see the gravesite, and you take a look, you know, you hear, here lies Ace, born a man, died a desert ranger. So there's a shovel on the ground, and the normal course of business is to take the shovel and go on your way to the mission and look for the repeater units. But being that these games you want to let people try the way they want, if you've tried using the shovel on the fresh grave for which they just buried Ace, you're not going to get a very good response back. He gives you twice warning, last warning request, do not touch Ace's grave. But being the role player that people must be, we have to try it. So you've been dishonorably discharged from the Rangers. So we have no problem letting the player die in the first 10 seconds of gameplay if they want to go ahead and take a ridiculous route of digging up a grave of a fresh body. And boom, game over, just like that. So now we're going to go back and we're going to proceed on a more normal route. So we're going to pick up the shovel, and we're going to walk over to a conversation with the guy who's going to be guarding the Citadel door, who's going to tell the Rangers that he's not going to let you in yet. You need to go get the repeater units. And in that conversation, you'll see we're going to be using one of the conversation-based skills. When you create your character, there are 3 of them. You can be a hard ass, a kiss ass, or a smart ass with your ranger. So you'll see down below in the lower left the options. That character there, Fade, he doesn't have any of those skills. You'll see they're all listed at 0. If you go through, you can see hard ass level 1 required to say let me in. So you're going to go down to the furthest character, Cold Eye, and you notice he has an appropriate skill level. So you kind of try to bluff him out. And he says, oh, you're talking tough already. And so he's impressed with your chutzpah that you would even try to BS your way into the Citadel right off the bat. So by doing so, he rewards you and gives you a special pistol you wouldn't have had otherwise. So again, that's sort of another small moment that if you didn't have that skill and you didn't use it in that appropriate time, you wouldn't have had that sort of lead up. And again, this is sort of in the first part. Again, it's all about the detail. Somebody says, hey, look at that. Pick up that can over there for me. So you go over, pick up the can, boom, the screaming goat hits you right in the butt. So you can approach this situation any number of ways. You can be a jerk, kill the poor goat. Or, this time, rather than kill the poor thing, there's a skill that you have in the beginning of the game when you create your character called Animal Whisperer. And with that skill, you can go around and you can charm animals to follow you around the game. It's unclear how useful that is at this point, but there's nothing wrong with a goat and a pig and chickens following you around the whole game. So now you've got a goat, a screaming goat. And if you want to be a real ass, you kill the goat, and then turn around and kill the guy that complained about you killing the goat. It's a rough place. So this is Angela. She was the redhead in the opening, and she was also in the first game. So again, this is a situation where you could have walked right onto the main map, started the game, and started your quest. Had you wandered left, you would have found her, and you'll see she's very broken up about Ace. And you can have a very deep conversation with her about a whole number of things that are happening in the world and from the first game. And because she was in the first game, she has a tremendous amount of lore. So there's a lot of keywords you can even type in here for information that she has. So basically, she says, hey, I want to help find Ace's killer. Let me come with you, but please don't tell Vargas. And you said, yeah, sure, great. And now you've got Angie's in your party. You have your 5th character. Now we're reapproaching this situation just to show you again another level of detail where we've gone up to Angie. And this time, if the characters have a high enough perception check, they'll got this message here that you'll notice there's a tattoo with a heart on her arm. And you wouldn't have seen that otherwise. And then you'll notice down below the word heart is now in your keyword. So now you can have a conversation about a different subject matter than you would ever known had you not made that check. So now we're going to have Angie join our party. And if you remember, she was very specific, saying, I'll come join with you and I'll help you out. And she's tremendously useful because she's higher level and she helps you with and she stays with you for the first half of the game.
Hey there, Angie.
But if you wander back to Vargas, he says, what's Angie doing with you? And you can say, oh, she's just giving us orientation. But if you're stupid enough to say, oh, she's coming to help get revenge, then she says, she says, God damn it.
Angie, we talked about this. Captain, stand down. That's an order. These Rangers have a mission, and you and me need to sit down and have a long talk.
And there, boom, now you've lost Angie because you went ahead and talked to Vargas. Let me pause it for just a second. So again, big focus on the detail. So one of the things, that we have a lot of writing in this, and my poor writers, they'll create these wonderfully complex scenarios where you'll meet a guy and he might lie and give you disinformation, and you'll be able to go find that out and come back and maybe bluff him or trick him to get to tell you the truth. And they've got these sort of interwoven scenarios that are great. But then we always remind them, don't forget, you can just shoot the guy in the head and it's over right there. We allow you to shoot or kill anyone, and then we have to deal with the consequence. So it's very tricky because we're trying to tell a narrative story, but on the other hand, we have to let you do anything you want, anytime you want, and that's what makes these very, very tricky. And the thing is, I have one really bad habit when it comes to making these games. I tend to make them too big, and I think this is my sort of my biggest offender. We just recently put all the text up for localization. We're starting to put it in foreign languages, so it forces you to put a loc kit up, do a word count, put it up, and start the process. So we put our first word count up. We're larger than the Lord of the Rings. We have 500,000 words. So, oh my gosh, we didn't quite know how many we had, and we weren't even done putting it up. So then we put up our second batch. We pass up War and Peace at 560,000. So we're still not done. We're still putting text up. We still have all the epilogues. So only the Bible is ahead of us at about 760,000. So we're gunning for the Bible in terms of word count. The game is absolutely massively huge. It's 50 to 60 hours of gameplay to get through it. And even if you do, you're just not going to see everything. It's just impossible. And no two people will have the same experience. And people play Fallout. I still hear them talking about it. They still play the game 10 years later, and they still continue to find things that they didn't see on their previous 5 or 6 run-throughs. This will absolutely be the case. My guys were doing a pass before I left. They were sitting with the particle effects guy, going through the entire game, making another pass of more special effects he could do. And they have this super party that's basically one shot, one kill, just so they can get through the game as quickly as possible. They had to sit in a conference room for 2.5 days to get from start to finish, knowing everything to do, critical path with a one shot, one kill party. The game is absolutely massive. So I'm going to show you some more sort of odd moments. So we're in the real nomad camp. We're in the hobo village. See, all the hobos are barking out. And again, you'll see as we walk around, even Angie's commenting about things. And again, if Angela wasn't in your party, you wouldn't be getting these conversations that are going on. So one of our favorite characters, and he's actually a backer name. His backer name was Scotchmo. If you pay $1,000, you get to be in the game. So Scotchmo's a backer. So I don't know if he knows we made him a raging alcoholic. So Scotchmo talks, he used to be a fighter before they made him drink the squeezins. Again, if you remember the first game, Snake Squeezins was the alcoholic choice of beverage. So Scotchmo is now in your party, so you've now added someone else. And right away, you'll see people start barking. The other hobos saying, oh, you're siding with the Rangers now, are you? You go into one of the stores, and Holiday starts having a conversation with Scotchmo. And we love that small attention to detail. We walk by the bar, Scotchmo says, hey, this is a great place. I'm feeling thirsty. We should go check it out. And of course, Scotchmo knows the bartender by his familiar name. So we have a conversation with him, and this is where you buy the snake squeezins. So we're going to let the Rangers go ahead and buy a few bottles of it. All right, made a nice trade. We got 3 bottles of snake squeezins. Exit the conversation. Start to walk out. Oh, something was stolen from the party. So we take a look. Look at Scotchmo. Oh, he stole one of the bottles from you. So we try to head out. Something was stolen from the party. Once again, Scotchmo keeps grabbing the booze. We go out. We can see that this is going to be a futile exercise to stop Scotchmo from stealing the alcohol from the group. So again, more commentary on him being in your group. Finally, he makes some comment about somebody pooping in his pants, and they decided to disband him. And if you can manage to keep Scotchmo alive all the way to the LA part of the game, you'll be rewarded for doing so. So I'll pause for just a second again. So the other thing is the radio is a huge part of the communications of the Wasteland, and it's something where we've used it to really dial in the atmosphere and the mood. There's tens of hours of broadcasting, whether it's Vargas sending you on your mission. You're sort of cops of the future in a way. And you are also hearing distress calls. You're hearing real chatter, Cold War radio chatter that we put in. We've even recorded some messages in Russian. So if you happen to speak Russian, you pick up some hints that you wouldn't have otherwise. There's just a lot to it. And the other big part of it is the cults. The LA is full of competing strange cults. And so you're starting to pick up these messages in Arizona. Once you get to LA, it really sort of increases. So this just gives you a bit of a taste of it. This is when you first hook up the repeater units of some of the messages coming through. We're using a skill on the machine.
Yep, it's coming in now. Good and strong. Hang on 1 second. Ranger Team Echo, this is Ranger Command. Are you reading me? Roger, Echo 1. We just received the high-pull relay signal. Looks like everything's hooked up correctly. The gift I want to pass on to you, the weak, the downtrodden, the persecuted and enslaved. Come to the new Citadel, join our brotherhood, and you too will wear the armor of the evolved. You too will be immortal, invulnerable, untouched by disease or age for all time. You will be a perfect being, ready to lead the world into a golden future of light, beauty.
God's mercy is in the bullets of our guns, brothers and sisters. It is in the tips of our bayonets. It is in the death of every sinner who is too blind to turn to the light. Every time we end a life in this God-forsaken world, we end misery and bring peace. So I say unto you, friends, praise the Lord and...
Damn it, Woodson! I did not want that to go out over the air. Sorry about that, Echo 1.
So now we're going to roll into the
Good
combat
job. You're
system. You
halfway
spend a
there.
tremendous
Please
amount of time in
proceed to
combat,
exit
as you'd
or
expect.
We're still
Anybody
getting
who
SOS
is
calls from that
familiar
location.
with XCOM or Jagged Alliance or Fallout Tactics or that kind of game, you're going to love the combat system. There's a lot of depth. And if you think you're going to just stand in the middle of the screen and go toe-to-toe and fire, it's not going to work out so well. You've got to take advantage of height. You've got to take advantage of hiding behind things. You have scopes. You have sniper rifles. You have things that spray and do less damage. You have RPGs, grenades. There's a number of different skills that are combat oriented. You can weaponsmith your weapons and add on things to them. And the robots are a real pain in the ass. That's the Rave bot. He lights the players up to add a huge 2-hit bonus for the other robots that come on the scene. So you've got to determine whether you want to focus your energy on the guy that's targeting you, lighting you up, so to speak, versus the things that are doing the damage. So here you can see he's using cover. And we're using a height advantage there. Mounted gun turrets are a real bitch. There he used a skill to get by a obstacle, or of course the brute force method with a grenade. Your choice. That's the whole hallmark of these things, is to play them the way you want. And we could not have cow tipping. So this is the LA sequence of the game. And in many ways, you know, we really hit our stride as a game when we get to LA. I mean, you spend a good 25, 30 hours in Arizona. It's like one big tutorial almost. Now you get to things where we hit it in terms of our design, the weirdness of it all, the openness of it all. Graphically, I think it's completely different. It's almost like you played the game for 25 or 30 hours, and now you're starting a brand new game with your characters. And we really like that transition. It'll be a major moment. So these two people here are complaining, say, hey, we got some robot on our house. Do you mind, taking care of it for us? Of course, their definition of a robot wasn't what you were expecting. So this is Mr. Manners. He's the head of the Mannerite cult. This is a cult that has dedicated their life to Miss Manners' good guide for good behavior, and so they've taken it to the furthest sense of possible about where the salad fork goes, and everything's a criminal offense. They think there's no civilization without good civility. They also happen to be cannibals, so they're the most polite cannibals you'd ever want to meet. So this is just as we're coming into their area. They've taken over the LA Coliseum and made it their fortress. This particular sequence is when you're coming into the town of Rodea, and they're asking for a tax for bullets to get in. So this first guy, he's talking about voting, because I never heard about voting for bullets, and they're all laughing at him about the voting. So he says, I'm not going to pay. It doesn't work out too well. So now it's your turn as the player to step up. Same question, whether you're going to pay with bullets. So this is a situation where you could try to fight your way through, but it's probably going to be very, very difficult. Or you can go ahead and pay the bullet tax. And it's meaningful because ammunition is a scarcity item in the Wasteland, so you're always really keeping an eye on it. So it's always painful to have to give up bullets. Until you pay and you're in. So I'm going to pause one more time, and then so the other thing that we're doing that we think is kind of cool and really innovative in terms of role-playing games is that we're revisiting what it means for a game to end. Typically speaking, you play a role-playing game and you get to the end and there's like 3 choices or 5 choices and it branches all at the very end. But that doesn't make as much sense to us in terms of real life. If I go rob a bank, my life is not going to end 3 different ways. It might end a very different way. And so we have sort of a 10-hour ending and a 30-hour ending and a 40-hour ending and a 60-hour ending. I don't mean just like you're shot, you're killed, you die, which is, and I'll give you an example. In Arizona, you're supposed to be the good guys. You're the cops of the future. So when Vargas is giving you orders to go help people, if you start murdering innocent people over and over, he's going to start commenting on that. And it's finally going to get to the point where he says, if you do this again, you're no longer Desert Rangers. And so when you do it, and you've been plenty of warned, the whole game changes. So you do it, you've now become enemies of the Rangers themselves. The random encounters that used to be random bandits are now Rangers who are out to kill you. And there's no going to LA at this point. It's not even possible. They're not even going to send you there. Your game is sort of encapsulated there. And now, as they're trying to hunt you down, you have the ability to beat them. In fact, you even have the ability, there's an enemy of the Rangers that you can somehow manage to join up with you. And together, you can go and try to take on the Rangers. And you sort of win the game. It's sort of an anti-heroic ending, but it's a full ending. The credits roll. We give you a complete synopsis of everything that you've accomplished in the game, and that's it. You've achieved what you've set out to do, which was to be basically a bad guy. And we like to reward that behavior, so we really don't care. Now, in reality, we know you're going to do that, go, okay, you go back to the save game and probably continue on and to get to the more heroic ending. But we like the non-heroic endings along the way. So there's a lot of surprises for people that if they take things out to their natural conclusion, they get rewarded for doing so. And we think that's sort of an innovative twist for these types of games. And so this last bit here is just to end on is the Mad Monks. They have a very unique way of, they've dedicated themselves to nuclear energy and the mushroom cloud. So when you screw with the Mad Monks, they just run up with a little backpack on, and that's how they deal with their enemies. And there you go. There's my Wasteland 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. We're going to take some audience questions now. I'm going to go right to Mario at the back. I think it's Mario. It's just a red cap. I was close. I just saw the red cap. Here you go.
So, what console will it be on?
The platforms?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're coming out on the PC, the Mac, and Linux platforms. And those were the ones that were part of our Kickstarter campaign. Those were the formats our backers gave us the money for. We get a lot of people ask us, what about console? What about iPad? But we're just super laser focused on getting these versions out and right, and then we'll worry about those kinds of things later.
Could we see them at a later date? Brian, could we see them at a later date? Is that a potential?
Oh, it's absolutely a potential. Well, like I said, we're not putting much of our mental bandwidth towards it.
Brilliant.
So, obviously, a lot of the people who are huge fans of these older games probably donated to Wasteland 2. I know I did. How much, this is a bit of a weird question, how much money do you reckon you're going to get from sales? And do you think it's going to fund future games? Or do you think Kickstarter is now going to be models for all of your future games in this vein?
Let's see. Well, we definitely count on sales beyond Kickstarter. In reality, you know, when you raise about $3 million, you end up with about 2.5 when it's all said and done. And then there are hard costs involved outside of production. We've put in a lot more money on top of what into Kickstarter, so we're absolutely counting on sales. Because for me, this is one of the higher profile Kickstarter games. And so based upon backers, based upon my friends in the development community who say, Brian, don't screw this up, you know, I felt the need to over-deliver on this game. Like, anybody who gave us $15 for this Kickstarter is getting the deal of the century, you know, because you're going to get this 50 to 60-hour game that has so much diversity. So for me, I just wanted to knock it out of the ballpark with this one to show how wonderful crowdfunding can be. With that said, to the other part of your question, is we do plan on using crowdfunding as a go-forward regardless. And I think the dynamics, they'll change every year, right? And I think that on the good part, they'll be like, okay, we've just delivered on Wasteland 2, we've over-delivered, everybody's happy, we're going to do something else. At least hopefully we remove the can they do it off of the table, and then people can look at it and go, okay, well, I want to support what they're doing, and you know what, I'm probably going to get it, so I'm probably getting a discount, worst case, right? But the reason why it's really great for us is because it engages people. When people are there in the beginning voting with their dollars that they want to do it, it's two things. One, it tells us the idea is good. It vets it right up front. We have lots of projects we'd like to do. I'd rather do games people are super excited about than ones that are not. So it tells us that. And also, when people are, our audience has helped us put this game together. we've had tens of thousands of people beating on this product. And so their feedback's been, critical. Back in the day when we do Fallout, we'd make a game and we'd ship it and keep our fingers crossed that we nailed stuff. Now we sort of take all that input that we'd have post-ship and moved it up ahead of ship and really get to work with the audience. So money aside, the interaction that we've had with people has been like I said, it's just been invaluable to me.
Do you see Kickstarter as a viable platform for publishers now? Is that a new publishing platform that's here to stay?
What do you mean? What do you mean by publishers?
Kickstarter.
Do you mean like can Electronic Arts use it? What do you mean?
What kind of like funding games as opposed to the traditional publisher platform? Is it here to stay or is it just a fad?
No, I don't think crowdfunding is going away. I mean, it's continuing to grow. Kickstarter itself is growing bigger and bigger every year. There's 80 different sites that have launched. So the whole concept of it, I think people are they're going to scrutinize it a bit more. There was a lot of excitement. People were throwing their money out, and some projects came out, not quite what they expected, but there's also been some wonderful success stories. So I think people will be a little more careful with it, but there's always going to be a concept that gets people excited. I have friends of mine who are not in the game business. They think it's crazy, right? They say, well, you raised $3 million at what? It's not even a loan. What the heck? They just can't wrap their head around it. And so I always tell them, I go, was there some band that you grew up with as a kid that you just loved their music? And I said, what if they got together and said, they're going to make another album. Would you give us $20? The guy goes, yeah, I do that. I go, well, that's just it. We all have our thing that we would support, and that's what crowdfunding is about.
Brilliant. Any more questions at the back? Can I see hands? No, that's it. Brian, thank you very much. Can I get a big round of applause, please? And when's that out, Brian? When are we expecting it?
Yeah, no. Any backers, please come on up and say hi. Once again, I really appreciate all your support. I mean, it's why I'm here today.
And when can we expect the game? Any idea yet?
When? End
Do
of
you have
August.
a release date?
Yeah, we just announced the end of August release date, so we're in the home stretch.
Marvellous. Thank you very much.
Good.
Ladies and gents, please stick around. We've got Phil Lamar and some Oculus Rift later on. Once again, for Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good.